парызымыз балаларымызды қорғау, олардың үкілі үміттерін аялап, арман жолындағы талпыныстарына қанат бітіру.
Еліміздің болашақтарына қошеметті аямайық. Бүгінгі ресми шарамыздың шымылдығын ашу үшін сөз Астана қаласының әкімі Алтай Сүйдірұлы Күлгіновке беріледі.
Қайырлы таң, құрметті халықаралық конференция қатысушылар және қонақтар. Қазақстандағы балалар жылына арналған оқу, тәрбиелеу, жақсы көру халықаралық конференциясының ашылуымен шын жүректен құттықтаймын. Мемлекет басшысы Қасым-Жомарт Кемелұлы Тоқаев 2022 жылды Қазақстанда балалар жылы деп жариялады. Бақытты және білімді балалар біздің болашағымыздың кепілі. Тек бақытты балалар оқуда жоғары жетістікке жете алады деген ұғым бар. Табысты балалар өз болашағы үшін жауапкершілікті алып, қоғамның өркендеуіне қамқорлық жасауға мүмкіндік тудыру қажет. Уважаемые участники конференции, как отметил глава государства Қасым-Жомарт Кемелевич Тоқаев, безусловным приоритетом для страны является повышение доступа к качественному образованию. Сегодня в столице принимается ряд системных мер по повышению качества образования. Первое. Создание комфортных условий для педагогов. Согласно поручению главы государства, за последние 2 года, начиная с 2020-2021 год, заработная плата учителей повысилась на 50%. В этом году еще на 25%. За последние 3 года более 200 учителей столичных школ прошли повышение квалификации и стажировки в зарубежных странах. Кроме того, в целях исключения дефицита кадров акиматом столицы выделено 1400 грантов для подготовки педагогов в 2020-2021 годы. И в этом году еще 1000 грантов. Второе. Также по поручению главы государства реализуется национальный проект «Комфортные школы». Вот Министерством просвещения. В целом в правительстве мы одобрились по строительству крупногабаритных комфортных школ на 4000 учащихся мест. И уже проектируем 20 из них. Только эти 20 школ обеспечат 80 000 ученических мест. А до 2025 года в столице мы планируем открыть еще 120 000 ученических мест. В 2019, 2020, 2021 году, если мы открыли 70 000 ученических мест, в этом году еще больше 20 000, вот порядка 100 000 ученических мест мы обеспечиваем. Далее, материально-техническое оснащение. Более 70 школ были оснащены порядка современными предметными кабинетами и STEM-лабораториями. Четвертое. Для решения дефицита кадров мы вместе с интеллектуальными школами, вместе с нашими коллегами в центральных госорганах занимаемся над открытием вместе с инвестором педагогического института, совершенствованием педколледжа. И вот это все комплексная совместная работа даст свои результаты. Потому что мы можем строить школы, мы можем их материально-технически оснастить, но кто будет учить детей? Это вы. Сондықтан құрметті ұстаздар, құрметті мұғалімдер, осындай конференциялар тәжірибемен алмасуға, өзінің білімін жеткізуге, әсіресе мына 15 мемлекеттен шетелдік эксперттер, мамандар келіп отыр, өзінің әлемдік үздік тәжірибемен алмасуға мүмкіндік береді. Осы конференцияда қатысушыларға осы нәтижелі жұмыс тілеймін. Бүгінгі ертеңгі осы конференцияда алған білімдеріңізді мектептерде балаларды тәрбиелеуге, білімін жетілдіруге жұмсайды деген біз сенімдеміз. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear guests and speakers, I would like to express my gratitude to you all for joining us at the conference and sharing your knowledge with our teachers. I know that we have guests and speakers from 15 countries around the world, and special thanks to Nazarbayev Intellectual Schools for bringing you all together in Astana. Thank you very much. Құрметті қатысушылар, бүгінгі 13-ші конференцияда 15 мемлекеттен 170-ке жуық спикерлер қатысуда. 2 күн ішінде 100-ден астам секция және шеберлік сағаттары өткізіледі. Бұл іс-шараның барысында жинаған тәжірибелеріңізді болашақ ұрпақ балалардың дамуына жұмсау жолында еңбек етендеріңізге тағы да сенімдіміз. Алда келе жатқан республика күні құтты болсын. Баршаларыңызға мықты денсаулық, отбасыларыңызға бақ береке тілейміз. Үлкен рахмет.
Алтай Сейдірұлы, білім саласын дамытуға ерекше қолдау білдіргеніңіз үшін сізге алғыс айтамыз. Келесі сөз кезегі. Оқу ағарту министрлігінің вице-министрі Бейсенбаев Ғани Бектаевичке беріледі. Қарсы алыңыздар.
Қадірлі Күләш Ноғатайқызы, құрметті әріптестер, бүгінгі 13-ші халықаралық конференцияның ашылуыменен сіздерді оқу ағарту министрлігі атынан шын жүректен құттықтауға рұқсат етіңіздер. Ең үлкен алдымызда келе жатқан тарихи біздің тәуелсіздігіміздің символына айналған 25-ші қазан біздің республика күні мерекесі де құт берекелі болсын. Сол мерекемен де сіздерді шынайы құттықтауға рұқсат етіңіздер. Қадірлі әріптестер, құрметті қауым, бүгінгі өтіп жатқан конференция сонау 2011 жылдан бастап алып, өзінің үлкен нәтижелігін көрсетіп келе жатыр десек болады. Бүгінгі Астана қаласының осы конференцияға қолдау көрсетіп, Алтай Сейдірұлы, өзіңізге де үлкен ілтипатымызды білдіргіміз келеді. Осы конференцияның негізінде шетелдік біздің әріптестерімізді ұтымды пайдаланып шақырып, өзінің осы Астана қаласының бірнеше мектептеріне тәжірибе алмасуда тартуы бұл конференцияның қаншалықты маңызды екендігін байқатады. Осы өтіп жатқан 11 жылдан басталған конференцияға жыл сайын мыңнан аса азаматтардың жиналуы бұл әрине өте үлкен, мәнді де мағыналы. Назарбаев зияткерлік мектептерінің ұйымдастырып отқан конференцияның қаншалықты маңыздылығын білдіреді десем болады. Себебі бүгінгі күні мынау жылдам өзгерістер заманында 21-ші ғасырдың азаматтарын тәрбиелеу оңай дүние емес. Сол жылдам өзгерістер заманындағы оқу, тәрбиелеу және дамыту бағытындағы ең үлгілі озық тәжірибелерді тиімді пайдалануда бүгінгі күні республиканың түпкір-түпкірінен жиналған ең шығармашыл, ең мықты, ең үздік ұстаздарды бүгін көріп, қатты қуанып отырмын. Сіздерге бүгінгі конференцияның жұмысында үлкен табыс пен шығармашылық жетістік тілегім келеді. Уважаемые коллеги, участники конференции, на протяжении многих лет Казахстан плодотворно сотрудничает с организациями образования, научными институтами и учеными разных стран. Важно продолжить эту добрую традицию. Уверен, что встречи, профессиональные дискуссии, обмен опытом в рамках программы конференции будет полезны для всех нас. Разрешите пожелать всем участникам плодотворной работы крепкого здоровья, благополучия и творческих успехов. Мына конференцияға тағы да табыс тілей отырып, сіздерге амандық пен саулық тілеймін. Рахмет.
Жылы лебіздеріңізге алғыс білдіреміз. Сөз кезегі Назарбаев зияткерлік мектептері дербес білім беру ұйымының басқарма төрайымы Күләш Ноғатайқызы Шамшидиноваға беріледі.
Қайырлы күн, құрметті қонақтар, әріптестер. Назарбаев зияткерлік мектептері дербес білім беру ұйымының дәстүрлі 13-ші халықаралық ғылыми практикалық конференциясына қош келдіңіздер. Конференция Астана қаласы әкімдігінің қолдауымен ұйымдастырылып отыр. Демеушілері Айтас КЗ акционерлік қоғамы, Физматтың эндаумент қоры, Білім медиа групп, базистік магазин жауапкершілігі шектеулі серіктестіктері. Барлықтарыңызға да үлкен алғысымызды білдіреміз. Биылғы конференция оқыту, тәрбиелеу, жақсы көру Қазақстандағы балалар жылы тақырыбына арналып отыр. Конференция тақырыбының бұлай аталуына толассыз ақпараттар ағымында қалып, санасы сансаққа бөлінген қазіргі ұрпақты оқытып, тәрбиелеу ісіне, оларға қамқорлық танытып, жақсы көрудің аса маңыздылығына назар аудару қажеттігі себеп болды. Конференцияға әлемнің 15 елінен онлайн және офлайн форматта 1000-нан артық адам қатысып отыр. Құрметті әріптестер, дәстүрлі қазақ қоғамында бала тәрбиесі ұрпақ сабақтастығында дамып келеді. Бала отбасында ата әже мейіріне қанып, әке шеше тәлімін алып, солардың бағыт бағдарын қазық етіп, мектептегі ұстазымен бірге ұстанымын қалыптастырып, өмірден өз жолын табатын. Жүрер жолы мен шығар биігін отбасы мен мектептегі тәрбие ықпалымен анықтайтын. Технологиялар қарқынды дамып, өміріміздің ажырамас бөлігіне айналған қазіргі шақта балаға ықпал ететін ортаның ауқымы кеңейді. Баланың ортасы енді отбасымен, мектеппен, ауылмен, ауламен шектелмейді. Оларға интернет қосылды. Сан салалы, пайдалы пайдасыз, сәт сайын жаңарып отыратын ақпараттар оң солын ажыратпаған бала санасына салмақ салған мына заманда балаларымызға ата-ананың мейірі мен қоғамның қамқоры ерекше қажет. Егер олар бізден қолдау таппаса, ол оны тілі мен ділі, мәдениеті мен дәстүрі басқадан табуы мүмкін. Бала уақыт озған сайын шынайы өмір мен виртуалды әлемді ажырата алмай, иелі қоғамда иесіз қалама деген қауіп те бар. Бұлай жалғаса берсе, жаны қасаң, жүрегі қатты робот адамдар қоғамды қалыптастырама деген ой көңілге үрей туғызады. Сондықтан білім беру және тәрбиелеу ізгілендіру бүгінгі күннің уақыт күттірмес міндетіне айналып отыр. Бұны шешудің жолын алыстан іздеудің қажеті жоқ. Ізгілік концепциясы қазақы дәстүр мен халықтық тәрбие негізінде жатыр. Отбасы алтын бесік болса, мектеп алтын ұя. Осы екі ортаның мақсаты ортақ, міндеті біреу. Классик жазушы Мұхтар Әуезов айтқандай, ұл тәрбиелей отырып халықты тәрбиелейміз, қыз тәрбиелей отырып ұлтты тәрбиелейміз. Уважаемые гости и участники конференции, нам довелось жить на рубеже 2 веков 20 и 21. Ушедший 20 век принес выдающиеся достижения в науке и технике, показал незабываемые образцы благородства и величия человеческого духа, обогатил культурное наследие. С другой стороны, это век грубой военной силы, принесший разрушительные войны и революции, тоталитаризм, фашизм, терроризм, подавление инакомыслия и геноцид, экономические преступления, межнациональные и религиозные распри, реальную опасность ядерного взаимоуничтожения и экологического коллапса. Начало 21 века характеризуется более возрастающим катастрофизмом развития человечества. Научно-техническая революция объединила мир технически и экономически, вывела его на качественно новый уровень, но обернулась величайшим регрессом, возможно, в силу неготовности человека разумно воспользоваться созданными материальными благами. Киберугрозы и фейковые войны становятся новым полем битвы в современном глобальном соперничестве. Обострение глобальных проблем достигло такого уровня опасности, что они стали угрожать утратой устойчивости развития, нарушением эволюции природы и общества. Истории известны случаи гибели древних цивилизаций, существовавших последние 10 тысяч лет, когда гибель одной культуры вызывала цепную реакцию и исчезновение других культур. Следовательно, стратегическая нестабильность 21 века создает пугающий своей непредсказуемостью образ глобального будущего. В этой ситуации на образование ложится большая ответственность. По воспитанию человека нравственного, верящего в добро и справедливость, обладающего универсальными навыками, следующего истинным ценностям созидательной деятельности на земле. Образование и воспитание, наша любовь к детям должны помочь им определиться в позитивной облик эпохи в исторической хронике. Согласно исследованиям, современные дети проживают более сложную жизнь, чем их родители. Люди, родившиеся в 20 веке, поколение, которое несет в себе огромный опыт и знания. Для них важны личностный и карьерный рост, бизнес, завоевание уважения и статуса, стремление продвинуться по лестнице общечеловеческого влияния. Дети 21 века другие. Их жизнь более насыщена и наполнена информацией. Картинки, тексты, рекламы, голоса, музыка, люди, транспорт, сплошной поток, в котором надо ориентироваться, и они справляются. У них иной тип жизни. За неделю они получают столько впечатлений, переживают столько событий, сколько их родители в своем детстве получали за несколько месяцев. Если еще 2-3 десятилетия назад ребенок развивался в основном в условиях малого или определенного конкретного социума, семьи, класса, ближайшего окружения, дворовых компаний, детских и молодежных организаций, но всегда при четкой привязанности к конкретному взрослому, то сегодня он поставлен принципиально новую ситуацию, ситуацию разорванных связей, когда уже с дошкольного возраста он находится в огромном развернутом социальном пространстве, поэтому так важно им обеспечить заботу, любовь и поддержку со стороны семьи и школы. Мы даже не осознаем, что в эпоху цифровых технологий круг их общения увеличился до масштаба всей планеты. Использование цифровых технологий интернета – это не просто мода, а суть современных детей. Нынешнее поколение детей живет в мире с изменившимися ценностями и нормами, но обладает огромным потенциалом для развития нового знания. Поэтому важно пересмотреть сложившуюся индустриальную модель образования, предусматривающую некую линейность. Идея линейности заключалась в том, что есть путь, который тебе надо пройти. Образование, основанное на этой линейности, к органичности, созданию условий, при которых дети будут расти и целостно развиваться. А для того, чтобы дети были готовы к непредсказуемым переменам в их жизни, мы должны настроить систему образования и обучения в соответствии с новыми особенностями современных детей. Қазақы танымда баланы 8 қырлы бір сырлы етіп тәрбиелеу басты ұстаным саналған. Өмірдің бар ыстық суына төтеп беріп, қиыннан жол табатындай жан-жақты тұлға тәрбиелеу үлкен мәнге ие. Осы ұстанымның дәл бүгінгі күні өзектілігі арта түсті. Жаңа технологиямен бірнеше тілді меңгерген, робот құрастыруға қабілетті, функционалды сауатты ұрпақтың бойына адами қасиеттер мен рухани құндылықтардың сіңірілуі аса маңызды болып отыр. Адам қандай жағдайда да ізгі қалпын сақтағанда, меңгерген ғылым білімін тек өз өмірін жақсарту жолына ғана арнамай, тұтас қоғам игілігіне жаратқанда ғана адами биікте қалады. Ал осындай баланы тәрбиелеу сізбен біздің міндетіміз. Мир уже многократно имел возможность убедиться в огромном потенциале образования. На данном историческом этапе необходимо пересмотреть наше отношение к знаниям, переосмыслить цели образования и саму организацию процесса передачи знаний, умений и навыков. Недостаточно просто передавать традиционные предметные знания. Окружающий нас социальный, экономический и культурный мир становится более взаимосвязанным, что требует расширения границ фундаментальных дисциплин для использования открывающихся возможностей в решении глобальных вопросов. По мнению академика Осмолова, на наших глазах происходит перерождение образования. Оно становится индустрией возможностей, а не просто транслятором знаний, умений и навыков. Учащийся не просто получает набор знаний, им необходимо уметь их интегрировать из разных дисциплин, соединять с реальным миром и использовать разных незнакомых контекстов. Поэтому многие международные организации национальной системы образования находятся в поиске направлений совершенствования содержания образования. Данный вопрос актуален и для казахстанской системы образования. Совершенство содержания становится постоянным процессом, и это следует понимать всем, от разработчиков программ до педагогов, от родителей до управленцев самого высокого уровня. Общество должно быть готово к этим процессам и относиться с пониманием, потому что современный, меняющийся мир диктует необходимость получения не только знаний как основы для решения задач, но и развития навыков, установок, грамотности, ценностей и отношений, которые будут актуальны и позволят учащимся делать ответственный выбор и осознанно влиять на будущее. Международный опыт показывает, что эффективное совершенство учебных программ начинается с инклюзивных консультаций и предварительного исследования заинтересованными сторонами, а это в первую очередь учащиеся, педагоги, родители. Для определения разрыва между желаемым и достигаемым куррикулумом, что является одним из приоритетов стратегии развития нашей организации, возникает необходимость более глубокого изучения процесса реализации учебных программ на практике. Ежегодно мониторинговое сопровождение обучения по НС-программ в интеллектуальных школах является обязательной практикой их совершенствования. При пересмотре мы понимаем, что функциональные знания являются ключевыми, но недостаточными для прогресса и успеха. Такие навыки, как решение проблем, критическое мышление, способность к сотрудничеству, креативность, системное мышление, саморегуляция более важны, чем когда-либо прежде. Они являются инструментами, чтобы заставить то, что было изучено, работать в режиме реального времени, чтобы генерировать новые идеи, теории, продукты и знания. Я для сведения хочу сказать, на Назарбаев интеллектуальных школах ежегодно и происходит обновление содержания образования. Буквально в прошлом году нами внедрены новые предметы, потому что это очень важно. На қазақта бар ғой 8 жылы бір сырлы болсын деген. Бұл бүгінгі күні өте қажет дүние болып отыр. Разработчиками программ усиливаются цели обучения, направленные на развитие социальных и эмоциональных навыков, такие как настойчивость, эмпатия, лидерство, социальная ответственность, которые влияют на многие важные жизненные результаты на развитие и использование когнитивных навыков. Развитие этих навыков важно не только для благополучия отдельных людей, но и общества в целом. Способность граждан адаптироваться проявляет изобретательность, и коллективную ответственность все больше становится отличительной чертой хорошо функционирующего общества. Растущая идеологическая поляризация и социальная напряженность усиливает потребность терпимости и уважения, чувстве доверия и в способности сотрудничать для достижения защиты общего блага. Системы образования готовят учащихся к их будущему, а не к настоящему нашему. Базовые практические знания в определенных областях жизни, без которых невозможно или затруднено функционирование человека в современной цивилизации, представлены различными видами грамотности, которые мы попытались усилить, встроив целостное содержание нашей программы. В образовательной программе НС-программ заложен ценностно-ориентированный подход, а ценности являются важной составляющей и органично включены в содержание учебных программ и планов по всем предметам, а также заложены в основу воспитательных и социальных проектов. Существенное внимание уделяется и гуманитарной составляющей для формирования участия духовности, нравственности, культуры личности в гармонии с национальными и общечеловеческими ценностями, развитие эмпатии, толерантности, уважения других взглядов и культур. В ходе совершенствования были проведены исследования среди учащихся и выпускников интеллектуальных школ по достаточности НС-программ для дальнейшего обучения в ВУЗе. По итогам исследования голос учащихся нашел свое отражение в расширении перечня ключевых компетенций. В рамку ключевых компетенций вошли 12 видов грамотности, предусматривающие дальнейшие возможности развития функциональной грамотности.
The basis for further development of functional literacy, considering the recent pandemic
Медицинская грамотность.
political situation, medical literacy,
Грамотность по работе с данными,
statistical
программирования и кодирования.
programming and coding. We cannot foresee the future in 5 to 10 years, but we can create the environment for children to be able to cope with the future that we will probably see, but the today's school students will see it for sure. Along with the methodology and techniques of education that are based on the traditions of the humanity, we need new technology for our youth, for them to cope with the big flows of information, scientific information. To ensure full digital transformation, we require a complex approach to the organization of the educational process, revision of the content of education techniques and methods, equipment of schools, development of digital competencies both in teachers and students. Therefore, in high school, along with the informatics subject, we introduced programming subject that is aimed at generic literacy that allows children to identify and read codes, build algorithms, develop logics, think structurally, and facilitate communications. To deepen the knowledge and skills, we introduce elective cyber and information security is developed together with Kaspersky Lab, quantum modeling of substance structure, urban development, developed
собственные технологии для оптимизации образовательного процесса, платформа для проверки экзаменационных работ и маркер, стимулятор для выполнения практической части.
for the variety of digital content and assessment instruments. We based on the recent achievements in cognitive sciences and big data research.
Обучение по химии, физике, биологии с использованием систем ALEX и CodeBooks в 15 школах. Перед нами стоит амбициозная задача по разработке собственной платформы на основе анализа лучшего мирового опыта и адаптации нашей образовательной программы под возможности обучения на платформе. Над этим наши специалисты уже работают. Мы думаем завершить эту работу к 2026 году. Мы продолжаем совершенствовать процедуры оценивания. Уже в раннем детстве оценка взрослых становится для ребенка опорой для самооценки, влияет на его целеустремленность и способность достигать поставленных целей. Поэтому важно, чтобы оценивание было в большей степени мотивирующим к обучению, а не контролирующим. Влияние оценки становится благотворным при наличии у школьника доверия к учителю, а это возможно, когда используются объективные, прозрачные, валидные процедуры оценивания, обеспечивающие адекватную самооценку и критическое отношение к своим успехам. Чрезвычайно сильно влияет на успеваемость и достижение учеников ожидания учителей и школы. Если учитель способен четко донести до учащихся, каких успехов он от них ждет, вероятность того,
If the teacher is not expecting any special achievements or victories, there will be no victories. Sincere wish of teachers to know their students better, show them how important they are, how they want to develop them. This is the mechanism of assessment, but not just attitude. We use the entire mechanism of assessment data to understand how we can improve our education and ensure support to our children. Our specialists correlate the education results among subjects to assess and compare the level of skills development. There is external and internal assessment to ensure the quality of education, prediction of exam results for the graduates of the 12th grade based on their basic school course. Annually, we provide the teachers, the parents, the faculty over 7 million of a variety of reports. They are based on the data from our single educational system. We just retrieve the data without imposing any burden of reporting on our workers. We have started a study on the influence of well-being on cognitive skills of children and their academic achievements, cognitive burden on the grades of children. This will be developed today at our sections and at the European Association of Education Assessment this November. This is where we'll present our study results. The well-being of children is most important to properly arrange the educational process. There are many ongoing changes that are influencing the early development. Of course, the school is mostly responsible for the well-being of children, and the faculty and their methodological approaches are very important considering how challenging the expectations of parents and children are. We have arranged trainings, for instance, gaming addiction, a theory of affection, school without stress, kinesiology and educational practice. We have arranged supervisions by experienced psychologists to prevent burnout of our internal psychologists. So we are training the children and we are supporting our psychologists too. To ensure well-being, we have implemented training programs for the participants of the educational process, including children, parents, personnel and administration of schools. Strong family, we are just family, these are the names to prevent destructive manifestations in teenagers. Violence prevention program, how to stay calm, psychological technology of success, of future management and other trainings. The schools where such programs are implemented, we see the decrease of stress by 22%. Starting 8th grade, we started an elective discipline for social and personal competence via developing autonomy, independence, responsibility, empathy, communication abilities, and adaptivity. Well-being at school can only be achieved when the entire team, starting from the principal down to the technical personnel, are sharing the well-being concept of the school and work based on the needs of children, understanding how vulnerable they are in this big world. Ensuring good environment for collaboration with the parents, with the community in this ever-changing, complicated world. This is what we must achieve. Otherwise, it may happen, according to philosopher of the Enlightenment age, Charles Montesquieu. There are 3 educations, one from our parents, one from our teachers, and one from the world. The 3rd education crosses out everything that we taught from the first 2. Dear colleagues, quality education, quality knowledge, quality upbringing will always be a value. Indeed, they are critical for our economic growth, social development in the country. Therefore, we need to attach great efforts to raising our young generation, making and equipping them, making them able to cope with all of the challenges. Let me congratulate you again with the Day of the Republic. Let our country prosper. Dear Kulyash Nagataevna, thank you so much. Please stay on the floor. We have a great news, considering that Kulyash Nagataevna just mentioned that there must be fair and transparent assessment. Therefore, 2021-2022 for children of the 7th grade. We have applied new international standards to 7th grade children's selection, and we got accredited for our selection process. We have received an accreditation certificate. Arnold Brau will now be on the stage to produce the certificate.
Certificate here. Назарбаев зияткерлік мектептерін әділ.
We are very happy to receive this certification.
Dear attendees, it's about 2.5 years ago that the experts at the Center for Pedagogical Measurements under the Autonomous Educational Organization Nazarbayev Intellectual Schools and our people at the Research Center for Examination and Certification first made contact about the audit of the student selection system. This started a joint process in which, step by step, we got an insight into the rich history of this high-stakes selection test for grade 7 of the Nazarbayev Intellectual Schools. A development that started back in the year 2008, which is also our own founding year. Since then, the student selection test has become a well-known standard in the beautiful country of Kazakhstan. Many innovations followed, and the test organization grew along with the growth in the number of pupils taking the test every year. Last April, as many as 25,000 children spread throughout the country. This can rightly be called a great achievement. For us as RCEC, working with the colleagues at CPM was therefore an inspiring and an instructive audit process. Collecting, organizing, and analyzing this rich history has also given us fine new insights on how to carefully test and fairly select the new group of children for NIS schools in the country of Kazakhstan. It is therefore a great honor that we as RCEC have been able to contribute to assuring and advancing the quality of the student selection system. Our mission as RCEC is to contribute to the careful application of the knowledge and technique of examination in the daily practice, and to this end, we use our RCEC review system for the quality of examination. This allows our auditors to intensively evaluate the substantive, organizational and psychometric aspects of an exam, and with this integral approach, this is how we do justice to decisions by, about and for talent. To stay in today's metaphor, where the student selection system aims to identify talented and gifted students who are capable of mastering the natural and mathematical sciences, that is where our review system ensures the course stability of this selection test. And so, together we are doing all our part to ensure the reliability and proficiency of you, the experts at the Nazarbayev intellectual schools. And so now, 2.5 years after our first meeting, it is a special moment, because today we can successfully conclude an intensive audit process. Together we worked on the accountability and quality assessment of the student selection system, a process in which we both learned from each other and in which we managed to stay on course towards the final goal. And that the end goal was met is evident today. The student selection system scores the highest possible rating of good on all 6 criteria of our review system. In terms of the substantive and organizational aspects, the criteria purpose and use, test and examination material, and also test administration and security are in order, and psychometrically, the exam meets all the requirements for the representativeness, the reliability, and the standard setting and maintenance. Hereby, the Center for Pedagogical Measurements objectively demonstrates that it provides expert and responsible examination for the student selection test. It's a great and wonderful achievement that the CPM colleagues have worked hard on and can be looked back on with pride and fulfillment. It's therefore time for me to officially award the RCEC Quality Mark, and it's my great pleasure that I may present it to NAS Chairperson Ms. Kulias Shamshidinova. And the RCEC certificate comes with a corresponding gift. I'm pleased to offer you a handmade Delft blue tile tableau by the famous Dutch painter Hendrik Willem Mesdag. The tableau consists of 6 small decorative tiles that together represent a scene of the famous Dutch fishery. The 6 tiles symbolize the 6 RCEC criteria, and the tableau depicts the journey we have made together and the good catch our cooperation has produced. With this all, I'm honored to offer you our certificate and the corresponding gift.
Үлкен рахметімізді айтып, қонақтарымызды.
Thank you very much. Dear guests, please take your seats. We will continue.
Thank you. Құрметті
Distinguished participants of the conference, dear participants of the plenary session, we are continuing, and I give the floor to Professor David Marsh from Finland. I would like
cluster. He works in Finland, and we know that he has been working here for in the education practice for 25 years. David has professional experience in over 40 countries, and he's been regularly visiting Kazakhstan, working with us on the trilingual education system, and he also looks at the impact of languages on the mind and the brains. So I would like to invite Professor David Marsh to give a speech on topic creating pathways for the future, making trends in turns into friend. Thank you so much. Please, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, to create pathways for the future, we need to know where we're going. And it's been my privilege to work with colleagues at the NIS Center of Excellence and in other countries, Canada, the United States, and others, to create the new national teacher standards for Kazakhstan. These are new national standards for teachers created by largely teachers and created for largely teachers. And I would like to congratulate NIS on having created this achievement. The standards were made not to judge teachers, but to provide constructive roadmaps for each of us in this room to navigate our futures. The standards provide guidance on where we are now, and they show ideas of where we want to be. And the standards reflect the modern trends that we see in education, both here in Kazakhstan and also globally, and that is what I'm going to bring to you today. I think. Okay. We had heard this morning from the profound speeches about the state of the world and the state of education. And in the world, we know that Industry 4.0 is a priority in leading developing countries and others. And this is a world in which education is moving away from the old format of first I give you the knowledge, then, if there's some time, I'll help develop some skills, and maybe I hope I can influence the attitudes. That was yesterday, and today and tomorrow, this has changed for the reasons given just by now by Chairperson Kuliash and others, that we need to focus first on the attitudes of the children, then we need to focus on what skills we wish to develop, and then ensure that they have the knowledge. So there's a profound shift happening in education, and this is influencing the trends that we have. You know, I come from Australia, and I think the signal is going through Sydney and back to Astana, so forgive me for the delay. Yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, we used to have education which was based on first I will explain and then we can explore. And today it has changed to first we will explore and then we will share an understanding of the explanation, from what we call direct instruction to guided discovery. And this major change which we're seeing is influenced by the focus on competencies. Global competencies. In the old days, we used to think of competencies as being able to do things. And when we look now, for the very reasons stated in earlier presentations, we also need to focus on the attitudes, if not the values. We need to focus on helping the students with where am I going to learn, how am I going to learn, when am I going to learn, and why am I going to learn. And this is making a big change now in how we view education. And all of this depends on modifying the student, the traditional student roles. Easy to say, not so easy to do unless we have the pedagogical activities in our hands. And the beauty of a conference like this is that it focuses precisely on what tools do I need to achieve the goals that I want to achieve. Now, there are 7 significant trends happening at the moment, I think. All right. Okay, no, back. Oh dear. I got it. There are 7 significant trends happening which are helping us realize what we call Education 4.0. And the first of these relates to well-being. We heard earlier about the stresses and strains, not just on children and young people, but also on the teachers in the schools. And there is now a major focus on well-being. It was accelerated by the COVID crisis, where so many of us in this room had to respond so quickly to very demanding teaching and learning situations. But it's also a reflection of, if we want to develop the attitudes of the children and young people in our care, we have to focus on well-being. In Finland, one of the typical activities which you can see in schools is where the teacher takes out all the chairs and all the tables from the classroom. The children walk in and say, "Where is my chair?" And the teacher says, "Hey, guess what? We're going to learn by standing up and walking around in this lesson." Simple techniques, simple things happening to actually address well-being and care. The second trend which we can see is about something which is called active learning. This is not clicking. I think I need somebody here to help me with this. Could I have an assistant? Yeah? Thank you. I don't have screens here. Okay. All right. I'll show you where to go. Hello, how are you? Good? Okay. Keep.
Click in this one, just, you know.
Okay. The second trend, ladies and gentlemen, is what is loosely called active learning. And what we can see with active learning, I don't know, is a trend towards more interaction and less transmission. Now, more interaction doesn't mean necessarily more interaction between the teachers and the students, but it may be between the students and the students, it may be between the students and the community, and so on. The sign of the times now is more interaction. And if we look at some of the studies on active learning, which are very difficult to do scientifically, we can see that actually active learning is not an Anglo-centric phenomenon. It's not something coming from certain countries. It's appearing in different countries in the world. Here you can see it's particularly strong in Australia, New Zealand, Denmark, Finland, but it is something which is happening very fast, and it is something which has been very much embodied in the conferences which we've seen here. And if we take the classic learning pyramid from the 1960s, something which is not appearing, something which was something which was developed possibly not on the basis of science, but on common sense in the 1960s in the United States at the National Training Laboratories. If you look at this type of pyramid, it's a metaphor for common sense about what is good teaching in the 1960s and also now in the present age. It's a metaphor which shows that reciprocal teaching, the one at the bottom, is profoundly more significant than others. Reciprocal teaching means where the relationship of who teaches who changes. So typically in class, it's an opportunity for the students to teach the students. The second most powerful is basically learning by doing, and the third is basically communication and interaction. That pyramid, which was created so many, 50, 60 years ago, still holds ground now when we consider modern trends in education. Trend 3 relates to the intended learning outcomes combining the competence-based outcomes and the knowledge-based outcomes. It's so easy to say, hey, I'm doing this course and we're going to develop these skills. But it is essential to have the competencies embedded in this is where I want to go in terms of knowledge and in terms of competencies. Trend 4 is the learning environments. We learned a lot during the last 2.5 years about how to harness technology as something that we control. And we've learned a lot about the fact that actually most deep learning isn't necessarily going to happen in the classroom. We can plant the seeds for deep learning, but it happens outside of the classroom. And children achieve deep learning when they take something from the classroom and they actually think about it outside the classrooms. So the issue of where and when we learn is one of great interest at the moment in terms of modern trends. One of the key words that has surfaced in education and become very popular in the last 3 years in English is hybrid learning. Actually, hybrid learning isn't just about technology. Hybrid learning is also about finding ways to connect what I'm teaching you today with your real world, with your real life, and finding alternatives ways to do it. The 5th trend is interculturality. Now, we used to think of interculturality as dealing with foreigners, dealing with aliens, dealing with people who are different. But now, when we look at the complexity of the world, when we look at the thinking demands that we need to achieve certain tasks in the world, we have learned to respect that actually children, young people are different, they do think in different ways, they will continue to think in different ways, and that, like the richness of the fauna and the flora of Kazakhstan, is an asset, it is not a problem. And this is where there is a major, major shift, as we heard this morning with our chairperson's speech, in moving away from education, one size fits all, into education which embraces diversity. At the event today and tomorrow, we have a number of experts, Kazakh and others, who are talking about personalized learning, who are talking about individualized learning. And these are very much in line with the trend of what we call interculturality. Trend 6. We also heard this morning about interdisciplinarity. There are various ways in which you can see subjects being integrated with each other. STEM is one example of multiple subjects coming together to create a learning experience which is not possible within a single subject. But there are many other examples of interdisciplinarity, and the key word here is integration. And the key word for all of us, whether we are school principals, whether we are school teachers, is we need to find ways to work as teams, as happy teams, in working out ways of integrating the curriculum so as to not only satisfy the needs of the students, but also, most importantly, to actually satisfy the needs of the teachers. This is the Year of the Child in Kazakhstan, and first and foremost, it is also a year for others, including the teachers. There is a recognition that over the last 2.5 years, teachers in countries like this have achieved incredible outcomes in relation to working in the conditions resulting from COVID. And there is also a recognition that the teacher needs to be ever more supported in order to realize the best potential of the children. And I've been playing with numbers, ladies and gentlemen. And I think here our audience, online and presential, is about 2,000 teachers. In each of your professional lives, you will touch the lives of how many students? Basic maths, about 8,000 students. So each person in this room will touch the lives in one way or another of about 8,000 students, because what you teach them now, whether they are 8 or 18, some of that will stay with them for the rest of their lives. So that means that each person in this room is touching the life of about 560,000 life years, if you put all the years together of all the children together that you teach. And if we have, as it seems, about 2,000 people at this event, it means that the teachers at this event will touch about over 1 billion life years of all the people that they come into contact with. I lay my case. Teaching is absolutely important. The trends are moving in our direction, and I'd like to end by saying, Kop Rahmet.
Thank you so much, Professor Marsh. It was interesting to hear how it is connected to our chairperson's speech, and thank you so much for showing us the trends as well. Уважаемые коллеги, поблагодарим.
Thank you very much. Let us thank Professor David Marsh. We continue with our plenary session. Our next speaker represents the Commission on Education in Asia. Let me talk about the Education Commission in Asia. It was created in 2019. It is a global center which unites different platforms, different stakeholders in education, and they focus on personalized education based on AI. So high technologies come into education. That is why it is called high touch, high tech. It is my great pleasure to give the floor to Dr. Sung-Ji Park. He is a scientific expert of the Korean Institute of the Educational Development with the topic optimization of classes with AI.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Sung-Jae Park from South Korea. I belong to the Korean Educational Development Institute. I have 3 kids, 2 elementary school students, 1 middle school students. Their schools are located the nearest point of Kazakhstan ambassador's house in Seoul. Today's my topic is high-touch, high-tech education in elementary and secondary schools.
Next. Down is next.
Yeah.
Следующий слайд.
Okay. Yes. As you know, Korea's smart education has laid the sound and strong foundation for online education nationally. Although it is still in the demonstration phase, we attempt to apply artificial intelligence in the classroom teaching in elementary and secondary schools. The artificial intelligence is closely related with the big data and data analytics. So we use the students' learning activity data. So this is area of some part, this is area of high tech. However, I will focus on the high touch by teachers. In addition, it is establishing a teacher's new role in the classroom, improving the quality of communication between teacher and students using data analytics. Why? Because teacher can find out and watch the data analytics dashboard, which is producing by artificial intelligence. Efforts are also simultaneously being made to strengthen teachers' teaching competency based on artificial intelligence. Here, adaptive learning. You may know well adaptive learning. Adaptive learning system is different from the traditional learning system. Artificial intelligence intervene in classroom. So, adaptiveness is a very key word in high-tech system. AI courseware, adaptiveness based on knowledge space theory, KST. There is also the IRT, item response theories. However, I want to share with the knowledge space theories here. KST is made through the process such as estimating the current knowledge states distribution. Each student's knowledge status. And second level is dividing each student's knowledge status. And then setting up new questions. At first, before start adaptive learning, we give students 25 or 30 problem set. This is initial test, baseline test. So, artificial intelligence divided the knowledge space of each student. And then set up new questions. Then checking. And re-estimating each student's knowledge stage distribution. This process is repeating and repeating. So adaptiveness can be traced or evidence verified. You can see the algorithm structure. So as students accumulate data left over from learning activities, AI analyzes them more accurately. So personalized learning service can be provided to each student. No matter how high-tech equipped, it should be harmonized with high touch to make a human being, students, healthy, creative, and keep being passionate. That is my pictures. My lab, this humanoid robot is a finalist of U.S. Department of Defense, DARPA robot competition. The finalist, humanoid robot. I'm trying to set artificial intelligence tutoring system in their body. This is my personal trial in my lab. Let's suppose AI is assisting students' lower level of cognitive function, such as remembering or understanding. This is somewhat, you may know the Bloom's taxonomy, the lower level of cognition or cognitive process, through the customized or personalized learning by each student. Then, teachers can leverage AI data analytics to identify students' need, what they require, what their situation. It can develop students' social and emotional competences by strengthening humane connection with them. Teacher can approach more accurately, more effectively to their students with the data analytics. In that case, teacher can provide students with an educational experience that integrate high-touch, high-tech by conducting classes for higher level of cognitive activities, such as applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Under the high-touch, high-tech education model, you can measure accurate students' knowledge level. You can provide more sophisticated, personalized learning service to your students. You can promote effective communication between students and teachers with the help of data analytics. AI will process data analytics. This is not your job. This is artificial intelligence jobs. So you can only use that result by watching dashboard. Eventually, the integration of high-touch, high-tech based on artificial intelligence will not only improve education effects, but also improve student satisfaction, which will consequently contribute to student success. Student success is our goal in school. We experimented HT-HT model at public schools. In our experiment, 53 teachers in 15 schools, 11 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and 1 high school participated this year. Our research focus are like this. Unlike other technology-based services, smart, interactive services like this model require significant human-to-human interaction, teacher to student, student to student, teacher to principals. Interaction and collaboration in addition to the service provided by the embedded artificial intelligence technology. It is important to gain in this model use acceptance. This is key important factor. Use acceptance, teachers' acceptance in this field. To this end, it is important to focus the interpersonal element of the service rather than the artificial intelligence itself. Our models, we set AI-based courseware as high-tech. We set the teacher's various intervention as high-touch. When AI-based courseware is used in class, it is to identify the type of high touch that derives the most effective learning effect. This is a smart trial of optimization of classes in elementary school and secondary schools. higher education also accept this kind of approach. In this case, high-tech, AI-based courseware from 2 Korean edtech companies was used. And high-touch consists of several types of models. You are watching Yes.
Model.
Yes. You are watching the data analytics from artificial intelligence. Teachers are watching this result simultaneously with the students' activities. So, real-time data analytics report are supplied or provided to each student, or each student and each teachers. The data is different and the result is different. So teacher can use this data analytics report. So findings from these high-touch, high-tech models, we find 3 or 5 things. The greater the teacher's proficiency in using AI-based courseware, the higher the effect of intervention on students. Due to the nature of a digital environment, UX is important. User experience is important. And the longer the students stay in the courseware, AI-based courseware, the greater the learning effect. Our research shows the effective learning effects can be achieved when teacher-led active classroom, active learning, active classroom instruction is integrated into single learning experience along with AI-based personalized learning. Since the teacher can grasp the students' learning activities in detail through the dashboard, data analytics, AI produced that data analytics. The quality of communication with the students improved. And appropriate encouragement and intervention led to effective learning results for students. So, this experiment represents several implications. The major implication is, even if supporting highly advanced ICT or AI to high-tech learning, it is not easy to produce the desired education effect unless supported by teachers' high touch. Although the method and the degree of using AI-based courseware in the classroom by teachers affected students' learning performance, learning effects. But teachers were very sensitive to their own time and effort invested in accepting these new technologies. They fear to learn artificial intelligence. This is not that approach. Teachers need not to learn machine learning language. They need to learn how to use AI-based courseware only. However, teachers misunderstand. AI service that analyze students' learning patterns can give teachers a high level of understanding of students' academic levels, but AI technology itself is difficult to bring about fundamental changes in current education system. This demonstrates how important it is for teachers to accept, use, and actively engage with technologies. Since technology does not change society directly, but in most cases, technology influences society by changing people, changing teachers, practice, behaviors, and attitude. So, in order for teachers to effectively incorporate AI technology into their classroom, we need some educational training program. Teachers, they need professional development and coaching, as well as guideline for pilot and use message. So, the state government or Office of Education or school head needed to help their teachers to learn how to use artificial intelligence in their classroom. Not technically. This is a somewhat mixed approach with high tech and high touch. So this is our implication from the Korean high tech, high touch, high tech education model in elementary and secondary schools. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Park. It was interesting to hear that you call upon for teachers not to be afraid of artificial intelligence, rather work with artificial intelligence. Is that right? Thank you so much. Уважаемые коллеги, вы...
Distinguished colleagues, you have listened to the presentation on artificial intelligence penetrating our life. And we know that too. We use Kundeluk online platform. We have online Mektep platform. So the more we know about artificial intelligence, the easier it gets for us to work, because we have analytics at hand, we have infographics and charts at hand. So Professor Park appeals to us to be able to analyze all of this information. And you know, at Nazarbayev Intellectual School, we build the capacities of our teachers to analyze data that are daily received via Kundeluk or other online platforms.
You can also plan it, and if you're interested, we'll be happy to share our experience with you. Next speaker, and it is the last speaker of the plenary session. This is probably going to be the most interesting presentation, as it is aimed at the preschool or early childhood education
system. And we know that economically, child development is the most economically impacting the children development, and we have to make sure that we work in the early education system. And Kazakhstan government is also giving a lot of attention now that we would work on the early education sector, not only covering, but also the quality of education. I would like to introduce Professor Iram Siraj. She is from Oxford University, and she has gotten huge reputation working on the professional development, interventions looking at the impact of evidence-based professional development in Australia, UK, and Norway. And she's also working in the primary school to improve maths for the 4th and 6th graders. So Professor Siraj, we are pleased to have you. Floor is yours. Thank you.
Right. Assalamu alaikum and good morning. It's wonderful to be here, and I would like to thank the chairperson and NIS for my invitation. I'd also like to thank the children who came on this morning and the participants for being here. It's wonderful to have such an amazing turnout of people, so thank you for being here. I'm not going to be as brave as my colleagues and try and use this clicker. I'm going to get somebody else to do it for me. That's the way to go, isn't it? Often, early years is the poor relation in education. It's often not part of the compulsory state system of education and is often fragmented in terms of qualifications and participation. Often staff are lower qualified, poorly paid, and poorly valued by society. And often the work we do is seen as simply care, to help parents to go to work, and not for the importance of early education in its own right and its value to human development and the wealth of societies. Slide, please. Next slide, please. A nation's success depends on the capabilities of its population. So nations invest in education for the population. And we know that schools are important for the well-being of our countries. However, what happens before school is also very important for the development of children, not just for that age phase, but throughout their learning life course and beyond. Early experience affects people's lives, including their educational attainment, their social emotional development, and later employability, criminality, and mental and physical health. These factors affect the global competence of the population and hence the success of a nation. So I'm going to make the human development and economic argument for investment in early childhood. Next slide. That's great. We can see here, I'm not sure that I have, I don't have a laser, but you can see that this is a slide that looks at the indicators of school readiness by parental income in the United Kingdom. The first three slides are linked to school readiness at age 3, overall school readiness, then vocabulary at age 3, vocabulary at age 5, and then conduct problems and hyperactivity. And we can see that those parents in the highest income brackets, their children are more likely to be school ready at 3, have higher vocabulary at 3 and 5, and have less conduct and hyperactivity problems. Why do I mention these things? Because these things are indicators of later success. For example, Catherine Snow's work at the University of Harvard shows us that the biggest predictor of reading at 10, 11 is a child's vocabulary at age 3, 4, and 5. So if after the pandemic we have had language delay, social emotional delay, this has profound impact for future development of children and their school readiness. Next slide, please. So the OECD in recent years has shown that something like 20+% of the population in OECD countries don't achieve the basic minimum skills for full functioning in modern society. In low and middle income countries, it might be considerably higher. And currently, 22% of even the UK population will enter school with developmental problems. And disadvantaged children are 5 times more likely to have low literacy. And most importantly, 1 in 3 disadvantaged children start school with poor language. I visited 2 wonderful preschools yesterday during my short stay in Kazakhstan with wonderful teachers and wonderful children, but the teachers were themselves saying how the children have come in with poorer language skills than in the past. Next slide. So disadvantaged groups have greater risk for other things as well: poor health, poor social, emotional, behavioral problems, and also key aspects of what we build successful learning on, such as attention, cognitive, and language problems. And of course, this affects literacy, numeracy, social skills, employability, health adjustment, and criminality. Next slide. So those with preschool education have less developmental delay in all groups if they attend preschool. So here we've got from the left the poorest populations to the most advantaged, and you can see that those who have no preschool, the blue, have more disadvantage on entering school. Next slide. So in terms of human capital production, we know from our longitudinal studies, my own longitudinal studies in Australia, Northern Ireland, Singapore, in the UK, that human capital production depends a great deal on the skills that early childhood is given. So we talk about early skills beget later skills. And later skills are those we need for school, employment, family, and crucially, parenting. One of the biggest predictors of children's cognitive development is mother's education. That's not news to anyone, but if we don't prioritize the education of girls and women and positive parenting practice, it has an impact for human capital. And this again is dependent on early skills. So we know that human capital is passed from generation to generation based upon these early skills. And what we're seeing sometimes, even when there is an expansion of early education, that the poorer early education is still with the poorer people, the rural people, the less well-off people. And sometimes early education where we have more advanced schools, and again, advantaged parents will take the privilege of that. We can end up with early childhood education supporting all children, but increasing the gap in terms of human development, and that is not great for populations. And we do know from James Heckman and others that there are huge benefits from investment in early skills than later investment. This doesn't mean there shouldn't be later investment. We know that later interventions work as well and are very important, but early intervention has an add-on impact throughout life. Next slide. This impact on poverty, on childhood and throughout childhood is persistent. Early experience is critical in this link because interactions drive development. This morning in interviews for television, people asked me to highlight, I think the reporter's phrase was, tell me 2 or 3 secrets about early childhood that would help our population. Well, it's not really a secret. Interactions drive development. And for young babies and young children, and I'm talking right up to the age of 6, these interactions, the quality of them, the responsiveness of them, the sensitivity of them, the use of language, including complex grammar and vocabulary and rare density words, are critical to children's development. And the arguments for investing in early childhood are twofold, and we tend, as early childhood educators or educationalists, to make the humanist and moral arguments. But really, you know, do politicians care about humanist and moral arguments? Well, our politicians don't care about anything because we're, you know, our politics are right up in the air at the moment. But there's also the economic argument that we all benefit in the long term. Because when you think about it, colleagues, the child, the young person that mugs your young person, or the person who steals from your family, you know, are the people that we are educating now in the early years. So early risk factors, next slide please. Early risk factors relate to poor outcomes around literacy and numeracy, school failure, unemployment, antisocial behaviors, substance abuse, mental and physical health problems. Now this sounds very important for society, but of course it's even more important for the individual. We in our country have looked at, for instance, the characteristics of incarcerated people, that is people who are in prison, and over 80% of them have poor literacy and numeracy. Next slide. So why focus on early childhood? Where's the evidence for this? Well, we're getting an awful lot of evidence from neuroscience, the importance of early brain development, from developmental science, that high quality early childhood education improves children's life chances. My workshop after this is focusing on our 17-year longitudinal study that looked at the impact of high quality over time. In terms of economics, high quality early childhood can save significant amounts of money later. But can we make our political systems think beyond electoral cycles to think about human life cycles instead and invest in people for the long term? I don't know whether we can, but I would like to think that we can try. Early childhood contributes to creating the population and workforce needed, as Lady Chairwoman and the last professor talked, is needed for 21st century with 21st century skills. Next slide. Here we see the brain development of children from birth to 6. Most or 80% of the brain is developed from gestation, birth, to 4-5 years of age. And around 4, it begins to prune. There's rapid development and then it begins to prune. Well, one of the facts that interested me is that as adults, we tend to use 20% of our consumed energy on our brain activity. Oh, I tried to think really hard. I hope I lose weight, but it doesn't work like that. But for a 4-year-old, the optimum time of activity, a child is using 60% of their calories on brain activity. And I think that tells you something about what's going on in terms of young people's development. Next slide. So we talk about the sensitive period, and sometimes people make too much of it, but here we can see children who are the child within pregnancy right up to 16 months. So that's 1 year, 4 months. And you can see the sensitive period of synaptic development in the last trimester of pregnancy through to the first year of development, how much children are taking in and developing in terms of brain development, in terms of language, vision, hearing. And this continues, it does continue, and then begins to slow down. It continues but begins to slow down. In our research, in some of our studies, we've shown how the first 5 years is a period of time when you can actually manage population change in terms of development. And that's why I think early years are so important. So let's take a look at the next slide. In particular, the language environment a child is brought up in is critical. I've worked a great deal with disadvantaged communities in Australia, and I myself come from a disadvantaged community. And one of the things I notice is that working class parents often leave their children to grow more naturally, you know, a natural curriculum where there's less intervention by the parent in careful questioning, careful interaction, and careful activities like playing games that teach self-regulation and early number, whereas middle-class parents will often do that, but not always. In our studies, we found many working-class parents who did that, and actually their children were achieving better than middle-class parents whose children weren't doing that, but there was a tendency for more middle-class parents to do it. Wise language development and responsive, sensitive interactions with your children really critical. Even in the schools that my colleagues have talked about this morning, we could see how important discussion, engagement with children was. It's great that secondary schools are now applying early years principles. Thank you. So language development underpins cognitive, educational, and social development. A child with poor language skills at 3, 4, 5 is going to be at risk unless intervention is undertaken. Let's take a quick look at the next slide. This slide is interesting because the graph on the left is the well-known Hart and Risley research, but also more recent studies in Victoria, in Australia, and other places have shown that the quantity of words children hear in a typical hour increases depending on the background of the parents. Poorer parents on the left to more professional parents on the right will hear many, many more words. And we know that by the age of 5, middle-class children have heard something like 50 million words, lower middle class something like 30 million, and the lowest social class is about 12.5 million. So even in that formative time of child development, what children have been getting at home has set them on different trajectories to success or failure. And what's more important in recent research, on the right, it's not just the words you hear, but the quality of the words you hear. The quality of words heard in a typical hour in more advantaged families were affirmatory. Yes, that's right. Or would you like to do this? What would you like to do next? They were far more affirmatory than the lower social class group, where there was more prohibition. Be careful, don't do that, get out of there. So you can see that they were both in all classes, but the disparity is worrying. Next slide. Yes, here we have the words heard in 4 years by millions, the Hart and Risley slide. And I'm going to leave it there. I have no more slides. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Suraj. It was very nice to hear from you some scientific proof of the investment into the early childhood. Thank you so much. Уважаемые коллеги, мы все понимаем,
Dear colleagues, we all understand that it is the early development nursery schools that make our life easier if we make the proper investments in the children's development. How easier our life could have been if, starting from the first year, we could have focused more and invest more in our children. So at this positive note, I would like to close the current session. We have discussed the quality education for every child. I hope there are many takeaways valuable for you. Your next sessions will be in different rooms. You can choose a room for you. There will be 12 author stands where you can buy books in Kazakh for children, research books. We can buy souvenirs or presents, talk to the authors and even take their autographs. So at 1300 there will be author stands. Thank you so much for your attention, and I wish you fruitful workshops.